It was,
You're not
he
funny.
got complied as of this morning.
This must be not good for No, I have no hard time admitting that you're not funny. Leave us alone, we're going over this stuff. Okay, so with her, we're just, again, establishing. Very good, I'm just trying to read it. Everything
Fort
here again
Wainwright,
establishing,
Fairbanks, Alaska.
and that one there. Huh?
Are you?
And
He
same
has
thing,
to repeat.
Can't get in much trouble.
but he's,
Only like
oh,
He's in compliance now.
okay, with this one here,
I
do
don't
I
know if
have
he's
it?
in trouble
He's
or
gonna
not,
submit
but I
an
can tell you
affidavit at
he's-
that time?
He just got back.
There is an
He was deployed somewhere.
He will submit it into evidence then?
They take him for 3 or 4 weeks
Mr.
at a time
Paddle
and bring him back.
Do you have an affidavit of compliance for him?
Yeah, he, Staff Sergeant, Ranger.
Good.
Wow. I have a friend that's teaching up there in one of those little remote communities.
Well, I've never been up there, but, you know, you can go on
Okay.
Google Earth and you can see the facilities.
I know that apparently
Yeah.
it used to be,
But you can see
I'm just trying to keep up with the new game,
the other things.
and it's very hard.
she's gonna be here.
When we used to eat.
67, 68.
Gonna be more
But I
consistent.
go back there.
Oh, God, I hope so.
Last time I was back there, I was like,
She's in church.
they have a lot
That's
of
cool.
friends.
That's why I'm talking to her, not you.
My son's been
That's
there
what I'm
for
just-
7 years. He was stationed at Fort Benning. He was there
What?
for the first 4 years of his career, and now he's a
Who the
big.
hell's he full here? Not you.
She's gotta get manipulated in my mouth.
Guess that's the root.
We're good then. Sounds like we got everything. Thank you. I just wanna make sure I was on the same page.
Oh, sure.
But let's get started.
And if you see something that makes you be there, let me know.
Guys that
Because I'm
we
still,
went to Afghanistan with that were
No, you're doing fine. I just wanna make sure that what I'm seeing is what we're gonna be,
even to go to.
that way I don't feel like I'm,
They basically, I don't know how it worked, but you can tell me, asked him to ask for a transfer to Fort Wainwright to go with these other buddies.
Yeah,
I might as well get started, huh?
you can do that. It depends on the clerk.
You all set?
Yes, sir. Sorry.
What's your son's?
Tommy,
To light a candle for.
thanks.
He's all elected.
Yeah. Let me go ahead and get the prayer out here.
All set?
Before we get started. Okay.
All right, I'd like to call to order today's meeting of the Code Enforcement Board for the City of Tarpon Springs. The time is 2 p.m. Today's date is Thursday, October 12th, 2017. I'd like to have an invocation. I'll ask Mr. Trask if you please lead us.
Our Father in heaven, we seek blessings on the tasks before us. Bless our efforts with clear insight, our deliberations with wisdom, our work with clarity and accuracy, and our decisions with impartiality. We gather to make decisions for our community. May we use only our best skills and judgment, keeping ourselves impartial and neutral as we consider the merits and pitfalls of each matter that is placed before us, and always act in accordance with what is in the best interest of the city of Tarpon Springs and our fellow citizens. This we pray. Amen.
Amen. Now for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Folks, if you have a cell phone, if you'd please turn it off or turn it to airplane mode, I'd appreciate it. Thank you. And I'd ask the clerk for a roll call vote, please. Roll call, anyway.
Mr. DeMontis?
Here.
Mrs. Archer is absent and excused. Ms. Casey?
Here.
Mr. Bergerman?
Here.
Ms. Dabbs?
Here.
Ms. Wade?
Here.
Mr. Weeks?
Here.
That completes your roll call.
Thank you. I'd like to go over the hearing proceedings. The Code Enforcement Board hearing proceeding shall be conducted as follows. It is the intention of this board to promote, protect, and improve the health, safety, and welfare of the citizens of Tarpon Springs by providing an equitable, effective, and inexpensive method of enforcing various codes within the city of Tarpon Springs. Any aggrieved party may appeal a final administrative order of this board to the circuit court. Such appeal shall be filed within 30 days of the execution of the order to be appealed. Florida Statute 286.0105 requires any party appealing a decision of this board to have a record of the proceedings to support such an appeal. The procedure of this board is as follows. First, the city presents its witnesses and exhibits, after which the alleged violator is able to ask the city's witnesses any specific questions regarding their testimony. Secondly, the alleged violator is allowed to make a presentation and present his or her witnesses and exhibits. Then the city can question the alleged violator's witnesses. After both rounds of testimony, both on the part of the city and on the part of the alleged violator, each party is asked to give a closing argument, first by the city and then by the alleged violator. After those three steps are taken, this board will close the public hearing portion of the case to discuss it and take appropriate action. Before we begin the public hearings, we will have all potential witnesses stand up and be sworn in by the secretary of the board. If you'd all stand, anybody that is potentially going to give testimony today, if you'd stand and take the oath.
Burrows, please.
Mr. Burrows? Mr. Burrows?
He's 90. Raise your right hand, Mr. Burrows. Thank you. Do you swear the testimony you're about to give is the whole truth and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. You can be seated.
Okay, the first case today on our agenda is case number 17-800000313. It's 319 Hope Street. Anyone here for 319 Hope Street? Officer Gaston, if you're ready to present the city's position.
Thank you. Case number 17-800000313. The property address is 319 Hope Street. The property owner is Lefthea Sitsis. Passing around exhibits, the first exhibit are all of my photos to include my inspections. Exhibit number 2 are all of my notices to include the notice of violation and the notice of hearings. Exhibit number 3 are administrative documents, including the case summary, property appraiser, and tax collector records, emails, letters from Wells Fargo and Capital Services. And exhibit number 4 is the affidavit of posting and a copy of the sign. All of my notices were mailed to the property owner of record as determined by the Pinellas County Property Appraiser and Tax Collector databases. And Mr. Chairman, if you would please, once they've gone around, accept those items into evidence.
Okay, I'd ask the clerk to collect all of the exhibits as they're passed along and make them a part of the record.
Thank you. I conducted my initial inspection on May 26th of this year regarding a citizen complaint about some abandoned vehicles and some other debris on the property, which constituted some appliances and things like that. As going along, we sent out all of our notices to who was listed on the property appraiser, and it turned out they had a foreclosure proceeding that was vacated. That occurred on September 13th. So that prior case that started back in June was closed out, and we started a new case on September 20th, and some of the violations still existed at that time. On September 20th, the vehicles were still on the property, but most of the trash and debris had been cleaned up. So you may see, I think I actually thinned through the pictures a little bit, and there shouldn't be anything but the vehicles. There may be one that shows some debris in between the two vehicles, but that's been cleaned up. Moving forward on September 30th, we sent out notice of violation and notice of hearings on September 20th to the property owner, which was now corrected because of the vacated foreclosure. So we now had the correct property owner. So we sent those notices out on September 20th. I posted the sign on September 30th. We did receive the green card to Capital Services, which was the registered agent for, I believe, the mortgage company, on October 2nd. On October 3rd, the notice of hearing green card from Morgan Stanley was returned. And on October 6th, the notice of hearing green card signed by the owner was received in the office. Conducted my final inspection on October 11th. I've had no contact with the owner, and at this time, the only case that's before the board is a violation of City Code 40.00, which is an inoperable vehicle, which is that white Ford pickup truck shown in the photograph. All the other previous violations have been complied. So at this time, Mr. Chairman, I'd just like the board to consider the 40.00 for the white vehicle for the owner.
Okay, does anybody have any questions for Officer Gasson? Officer, just for my own benefit, when was the last time you inspected this property?
I inspected it yesterday.
Yesterday.
So the
and
last photograph was taken yesterday on the
all right,
11th.
the vehicle's still there. All right. Again, anybody have any questions for the officer? Does anybody care?
This isn't your case.
I'll make a motion.
Go ahead then, please.
I move based on the testimony, evidence, and facts presented in law that at the time of the alleged violation, section 40.00 of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Tarpon Springs was in force and effect. The respondent was in violation thereof.
Second.
Okay, any discussion? Can we have a vote?
Mr. Weeks?
Yes.
Ms. Wade?
Yes.
Ms. Dabbs?
Yes.
Mr. Bergman?
Yes.
Ms. Casey?
Yes.
Mr. Demasis?
Yes. Okay, before we go to the penalty phase, let me ask you, Officer Gasson, any recommendation on the part of the city?
Just for the board's information, there's only been 2 prior cases, and they're like 16 years ago was the last cases, and they weren't related to vehicles. So the city at this point would be okay with 30 days and $25 a day.
Does anybody care to make a motion?
I will.
Go ahead, please.
I move that the respondent shall have until the 10th day of November 2017 to bring the property into compliance with code sections 40.00 or suffer a fine of $25 per day for each day thereafter the respondent remains in violation of said code section.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any need for discussion? Apparently no need for discussion. Can we get a vote, please?
Mr. Weeks?
Yes.
Ms. Wade?
Yes.
Ms. Dabbs?
Yes.
Mr. Bergman?
Yes.
Ms. Casey?
Yes.
Mr. Demasis?
Yes. Okay, that brings us to a vacant lot, case number 17-800000424, vacant lot south of 655 Eunice. Anybody here for this piece of property? Yes, we have a gentleman here. Sir, for the record, would you just give us your name, please?
My name is Theodosius Penesis.
Thank you. And have you had an opportunity to look at the exhibits that the city intends to place into the record?
Today it is. Yes, and I'm glad to have that. And I'm glad today the officer went over there yesterday and before. And the city is supposed to do all the work will cost me $1,800.
Okay, right now, sir,
Asking if you've had a chance to look at the exhibit.
Yeah, a little bit I did. Not real good, but I did.
do you take any exception with us placing those into the record?
Yeah, so far the city has to do a lot of work to clean, but they're doing it now, I see. Today there's people there doing it.
But that's their,
Yeah.
you don't have objection with the pictures, that's your property.
No, that's my property, and
Okay.
then it's,
All right, then. Officer Gasson, any, if you're ready, you can present you can present the city's, the city's position on this case.
I am, sir, thanks. This is case 17-800000424. It is the vacant lot south of 655 Eunice. It's parcel number 112715877860171120. And just for the record, the evidence that was presented to the violator prior to the board is an exact copy of what's being submitted as evidence, but it was not the original document, so he viewed a copy of it, but it was an exact copy.
All right.
Moving forward, this case is before the board to be established. It currently is in compliance, and it is related to the case we heard last month with the adjoining property. Exhibit number 1 are the photographs to include my inspections. Exhibit number 2 are all of my notices, including the notice of violation and the notice of hearing. Exhibit number 3 are my administrative documents, including my case summary, my property appraiser and tax collector records, and any emails. And exhibit number 4 is the affidavit of posting and a copy of the sign. All of our notices were mailed to the property owner of record as determined by the Pinellas County Property Appraiser and Tax Collector database. And Mr. Chairman, if you would, please accept all these exhibits into the record as evidence as they made their rounds.
All right, I would ask the clerk, as the exhibits are passed down, to please collect them and make them a part of the record.
My initial inspection was conducted on July 14th of this year. It's a vacant lot south of a developed property at 655 Eunice off of Sunset. The lot was overgrown. It is over 10,000 square feet, so my initial notice was sent out to the property owners requesting that they cut back 30 feet from the right-of-way, 15 feet from developed adjoining property. That notice of violation was mailed out on July 14th of this year. July 31st, the owner called to request an extension, was given until August 12th of this year. On August 12th, I conducted the reinspection, and at that point, the lot had been pretty much cleared except for about 30 feet from the roadway. So at that point in time, the 10,000 square foot exception, because the lot had been cleared, no longer applied, so now the whole lot needed to be cleared. The notice of hearing was mailed via certified mail, first-class mail, on September 20th. I conducted my reinspection on September 21st, noted it was still in violation, and scheduled it for this code board hearing. And at that time, the lot had been cut back 30 feet from the right-of-way, so it was in compliance. Conducted another inspection yesterday and took some final photographs, and it is still in compliance. And so I have before the board requesting to be established for a violation of City Code 8-40, the nuisance conditions related to private property and the maintenance of private property, and then the nuisance prohibitions of lot clearing under City Ordinance 8-52. And I have nothing further at this time.
Mr. Panizis, any questions for the code enforcement officer?
Yes, the code enforcement this time, I guess it's all right. He put a machine to cut pepper trees, the ones that's on the outside of the sidewalk and exactly the line of the city road was not paved. And the pepper tree grow, and I have trees on the other side. The limbs of the pepper trees go and get to the top of the big trees. There's no way to cut them down, so I have to cut them, wait to dry, you cannot pull it down. So I asked Mr.
Right now you
Greg
have
Dobbins. I put him 3 times there.
Excuse me, right now you have to ask questions. You're gonna get a chance to present your side of the case, but right now, this is the interrogatory phase. You have to ask questions. If you have any questions, ask them, and the officer will try to answer them.
The question
If
is
not,
if the loader, the machine is over there, and the people, they're going to clean the rest of the pepper trees, which is now my property, and they're going to put poison on the roots of the trees to die like I did on my size. And also,
excuse me, you're presenting your case. Right now, do you have any questions for the officer? A
I
question?
don't have any questions. The officer do his job.
That's the question is, do you have any questions? If not, okay, we're gonna let you
The
testify.
question is if he's going to finish what he started now. That's my questions. They send machine over there and they're working. If they finish it or they're going to leave it, because Mr. Roberts before, I take him 3 times over there. What he tell me, say go to the Greek mayor. He sent machine one day, he cut half of him, the rest of it he left it to me. All this dry. And they're still there. So this officer yesterday or before, he did the right job. He saw this is not mine. But this gentleman here, he says mine. So everything's okay so far. If they clean it, if they finish it. Plus, over there was sidewalks for a long time. They're beautiful sidewalks. The city went over there and put a lot of machines or whatever, and they take them out. And they put them inside of the rivers. I don't know what they did with it. They never replaced it. But when they did, they left a lot of pieces, chunks. Every year, I used to pay 2 times a year, Mr. Joe DiNardo, because I bought the property for him 30 years ago, 35. He cleaned it 2 times a year. And then when the city do that, he buys all the cements, he put them on the edge of the property, he make holes. When they get the loaders to take the cement away, they make big holes in the street. The erosion comes. I went to this gentleman 3 times. They asked me to the Greek mayor. I asked before. So the property is chunks of broken sidewalks inside. Also right there between the street and me. So the guy broke his machines 3 times. He said, Terry, I don't do anymore. I take another guy. He do the same thing. So this year cost me $600. One time, he left. On the end, he never did. And I have a lady work for me, do it. The officer saw it yesterday, 7 o'clock in the morning he was there. And the lady told me, you missed the officer. He was there. So thanks God today, he sent the machines over there to do it. I think we solved the case. But the city got to go there and hold and make even the holes between my property and sidewalk and outside, so that the machine, whoever cut the grass, they be able to do it and keep everything straight. But for 10 years, it's a mess. It cost me a lot of money. And the city workers, I don't know who's wrong against the manager who's responsible. Yes, at the end, they say, I don't know what I do. I sent to the mayor. See, one time, machine was right here, and I caught him. He put the machine in just save it straight, but to the city, not inside. They don't put poison on the pepper trees. And now all my trees is full of peppers. I have to pull and pull and pull. The officer can tell you. You got pictures here. So, thanks God he do those pictures. And he make me open my mouth and talk. That's what I say. I hope they finish it today, because they go and cut in the other side, which is easy, all the way to the city road. On this side, they never did. Why? Why me? They do it on one side, they don't do it on the other side. The city, they don't work fair. Whoever is responsible is not do his job. Now today, yesterday, a few days after the hurricane, I was in Greece. I come here, I saw some good work doing, and some ridiculous work doing. Well, I saw behind the middle school, one backhoe, one loader, and one bobcat. The bobcat get things to put him to the loader, and the backhoe pull him in. 3 workers, they do mess. They move it one place to the other. A gentleman passed by. He busts he windshield, he come out to look at it. I said, don't worry about it, Starboard Springs. So he do his cross and he left. I don't know if he come ask for replacement or not. That's ridiculous. I got a property on Cedar Street, there's alley behind. For 15 years, they never go. There's a sewage with a club, which high tide it comes to the sponge docks to close. The city, you don't went over there to check the big trees. The spot where my property is, I cleaned it. I cut the pepper trees yesterday, and I put them on the street. The city never went there. Next door is mess. So, plus, I'm pretty sure the club for the high thing didn't work. The city never go check it. The city don't do his job. I asked him many times, let's vote for the mayor, let's vote every 4 years for the city police and the city manager, so they'll be able probably to care for it, and they look out, they check the helper, they check the people who work for them, everything be okay. But no, they used to be. I'm 50 years here, they used to be. Vote for city manager, city police. I'm not having anything against the people. They might stay there forever. But it's not the way to do it. We've got to change the system. Now today, you spend a lot of money to do the efforts. But the people is inexperienced, and they have take the debris from one side, put them on the other, they fill the street. If you have a lot of drivers, take 2 goosenecks trailers. Yes.
I'd like you to just confine the rest of your testimony to your particular situation, not necessarily
my situation, it could be okay. I do it, I try it, and I try before, I have no problems. But since you guys remove the cement as mess, and the mess, if you need to remove it, take the debris out of the street and my property, the pieces sidewalk, they will continue because nobody want to work. I have to do by my hands, and I have to do my lawnmower. I run lawnmower, I do it myself. So that's my problem. Nobody going to do it. The city make that mess. She bust the sidewalks, you left pieces, and they're all over. Everybody cut things, they take pieces, move further out. They cut, and then they move the other way. So that's not my fault. I have to come over here, you people work overtime, and everything is mess. Why should I be mad with the city?
Anything else, or is that it?
I don't have anything else. If the city do his job, I'm okay with.
Okay. Any questions, Officer Gasson?
No, sir, thank you.
Does anybody on the board have any questions for Officer Gasson or for Mr. Panizis? No questions for anyone. All right. Can I get a motion then?
Is this Both 8-40 and 8-52?
Yes, ma'am, to be
Okay,
established,
thank
correct.
you.
And this is just, the
Established.
gentleman is in compliance, it's just to establish.
I move based on the testimony, evidence, facts presented in the law, that at the time of the alleged violations, sections 8-40 and 8-52 of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Tarpon Springs were in force and effect. At the time of the notice of violation, the respondents were in violation of said code violations. However, they are now in compliance.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Any need for discussion? Apparently not. Can I ask for a roll call vote, please?
Mr. Weeks?
Yes.
Ms. Wade?
Yes.
Ms. Dabbs?
Yes.
Mr. Bergman?
Yeah.
Ms. Vacasie?
Yes.
Mr. Demosas?
Yes. All right, it passes. And, Mr. Trask, would you just summarize for, Mr. Panisis, his situation now that this has been passed?
Mr. Panisis,
Yes.
the Code Enforcement Board has found that at the time of the inspection of the property, your property was not in compliance with sections 8-40 and 8-52, and it was not brought into compliance within the time set in the letter. Because of that, you have been found to be in violation. There is no fine because of the fact you are in compliance as of this meeting. However, if the property goes into violation again under sections 8-40 or 8-52 within the next 5 years, it will be considered a repeat violation, and fines will begin immediately. There will be no time for you to bring it into compliance. So it's very, very important that you keep the property into compliance with both those code sections for this day forward. Do you understand
Yes,
that?
ma'am, I understand that.
Okay.
And the property was applied for 30 years, till the city started making the mess. It's not my fault. I sent people to leave. So I don't like to accept that because it's not my fault. I don't do it. As the city of Tarpon Springs started to do that mess. If they was remove the sidewalk and take all the debris in pieces and close the hole, make it level, I don't know if they have to replace it or not. A lot of people say they have to replace. There was sidewalk that, they got to replace it. So we're going to see for that. But at least when you do some work, finish the work nicely. They make holes, they make butts, they make a lot of cements. So I send people there, I pay people to take care of my properties every year. So the people left. That's not my fault. They broke the machines. That's
Okay.
a city property.
We understand all of that. So we have
So-
other cases that
So
we're going to
in
go ahead and
that
hear.
case, I don't like to be responsible in 5 years because that was not my fault. And I asked the responsible person to come and do it. He sent me to the mayor. So why should I be responsible for it?
Because you're the property owner, sir.
I understand.
Okay,
But that's not my
that's
fault.
the reason.
I don't create this trouble. The city did.
Okay.
Okay?
Thank you.
I understand what you guys say, and I'm trying to be like before. But this mess is here for 10 years because of the city. And the people work for the city. Nobody check it. Nobody do the right work for a long time. I hope now they change. And thanks the officer to do those pictures and help me. And this is the truth, what he says.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, I'd like to call the next case. It's 510 Triplet Street, Charles Burrows. And Mr. Burrows apparently is here. Mr. Burrows, the assistant has handed you some photographs, I believe. Any exception with those being placed into the record?
I can't understand what he's saying.
Are the photographs correct? Do you have any problems with the exhibits we gave you?
Any comments? None.
Any problems?
No problems at all.
Does Mr. Burrows have a problem hearing us? Okay. Do you think it might be best, Mr. Burrows, if you sat right in front of us here and perhaps be able to hear us better than being at the podium?
Do you think if you sat in the center, you could hear them better?
No, I just don't want to hear them. All I want to know,
Well, You have to follow the protocol.
All I want to know is how much it costs to tear it down, and if I could make payments and tearing it down, that's all.
Do you think you can hear better right here?
I
You
don't
have
know.
to be able to hear him.
Why don't you have a seat right in front of us, Mr. Burrows, and then perhaps you'll hear everything we have to say, and we'll be able to hear you too. Very good. All right, Mr. Burrows apparently doesn't have any problem with the exhibit, so Officer Gasson, if you're ready, you may proceed.
Thank you. Case number 17-8000486. The property address is 510 Triplet Street. For some reason in the city's computer, it adds apartment A, but it's got apartments and a structure on it. It's a rather large lot. It's owned by Mr. Charles Burrows, who obviously is present. And Mr. Chairman, just for the record, the exhibits are exact copies of the original that we presented to Mr. Burrows prior to the hearing. The ones being entered are the original copies.
All right, and I'll make sure that the clerk collects all the exhibits and makes them a part of the record. Go ahead.
Thank you. Exhibit number 1 are all the photographs to include the inspections. With the board, as they're going around, take special note of some of those photographs. They were taken prior to Hurricane Irma. There's the north side of the building. You can see part of the roof was a little damaged, and then there's a ladder photograph that shows significant damage to that roof, and I just want to have the board note that because that's the primary thrust of this case. All the notices are exhibit number 2 to include the notice of violation and notice of hearing. Exhibit number 3 are my administrative docs, including the case summary, property appraiser, and tax collector records, and any emails. Exhibit number 4 is the affidavit of posting and a copy of the sign. All of my notices were mailed to the property owner of record as determined by the Pinellas County Property Appraiser and Tax Collector database. My initial inspection was on August 5th of this year. I had gotten a citizen complaint about an adjoining property, and it turned into kind of the whole block. The lot was overgrown, and then the structure on the north side of the property is in very poor, dilapidated condition, and appears that it may partially collapse. On August 7th, the notice of violation was mailed certified mail and first class. Also sent an email over to the building department requesting their assistance under the building code for the same property. That was done on August 7th. On August 16th, the green card for the notice of violation was returned signed by the owner. On September 5th, I conducted a reinspection. That was the day before Hurricane Irma. And we hadn't gotten any, additional information from the owner. The structure was still there. So at that point in time, I set it up to be to this code board. On September 13th, the notice of hearing was mailed certified mail first class. On September 20th, we did get the green card back for the notice of hearing from the owner. September 22nd, Mr. Burrows had contacted came into the office wanting to know how to comply, which basically consisted of either getting that building rehabilitated, if it can be, or demolished, or basically those two choices. The sign was posted on September 30th, and the affidavit signed. Received another office visit from Mr. Burrows on October 2nd. At that point, he was requesting names of demolition companies, which unfortunately we're not able to provide. We can't provide suggestions. I conducted a reinspection, which were the final group of pictures that you saw yesterday. As I noted, significant portion of the north side of that roof has been peeled away. And then on the south side of the roof, you could see it looks like it may collapse. And that was that way prior to the hurricane. There was a significant area where the roof looked like it is starting to collapse. As I stated, we've had some contact with the owner. At this point in time, I'd like the board to consider a violation of 6-1, which is the city's building code, which has a myriad of subcodes underneath of it. 8-40, the duty of maintenance of private property, and 8-52 for the nuisance prohibitions associated with that, maintaining private property. And at this point, Mr. Chairman, this is all I have.
Mr. Burrows, any questions for Officer Gasson? So you have no questions for the officer. All right. Would you like to present your side? Anything else you'd like to add as to what you intend to do?
Anything else?
Anything you want to explain to us other than what you've already stated?
Can I go with
Is there anything you want to say in response to the allegation? All right. Officer, any questions?
I don't have any questions for him, sir.
I have a question for you then.
Okay.
I understand that the city can't, is not in the business of recommending any vendors to do any work, but do you have any suggestion as to where Mr. Burrows can get some insight into who could take
Yes.
care of this problem for him?
The first step, Mr. Burrows, is, you know where developmental services is, the building department, right across the hall? Mr. Burrows? Do you know where developmental services is, right across the hall, the building department? All right, we'll help him out with that at the end. But yes, he could start at the building department, because the first thing that's going to need to occur is he's going to have to get a demolition permit. And that permit, then, there are a myriad of companies that can be located, but unfortunately, I would say Google it.
Well, I don't know that Mr.
So,
Burrows
but the
would have
building
access
department
to it.
may have a
I know
permitted
the name
Pinellas
of
County
them.
list
I give 'em a name?
of vendors that are allowed to
You care to,
function.
but I think probably the first step would be to get a demolition permit, is that?
Correct. And we can discuss it with him at the end to get him across the hall to the building department, because that is going to be his first step.
I'm not sure how much of that you heard, Mr. Burrows, but at the end of this meeting, Officer Gasson will assist you to send you to the right people to get a demolition permit. And they may be able to suggest the names of some companies that might be able to do the work for you. Well, the first thing you have to get is a demolition permit. A permit. Right. No, you have to do it. You can do it across the street.
I believe that the company.
Across the hall.
The
Is it
company
right here in
would
the?
pull the permit. So instead of him getting the permit, he gets the
Is it
demolition
across the
company
street,
and they-
across the hallway?
Well,
Across the
now we're giving
hallway.
them, half the people are saying to get the permit and half the people are saying to get the vendor first. I don't know. I have never torn down a building. Well, if we're right here in the same building, as soon as this case is over, we'll take a recess, Officer Gasson, if you'd walk Mr. Burrows over.
Yeah, I
to the-
actually have one of the guys from the building department who's in here. I texted him and asked him to
That's
come back
fine.
in here, and we'll
So
see
what
if we
we're
can
gonna
get him
do,
over
as soon
there.
as your case is over, Mr. Burrows, we're gonna have somebody from the building department talk to you and arrange for the demolition permit. Right, as soon as we're done here, okay? All right. Does anybody have any questions for either Officer Gasson or for Mr. Burrows? Okay? Does anybody have a motion that they'd like to make in this?
I do.
All right, go ahead, Mr.
I
Weeks.
move based on the testimony, evidence, and facts presented and the law that at the time of the alleged violation, sections 6-1, 8-40, and 8-52 of the Code of Ordinances for the city of Tarpon Springs was in force and effect. The respondent was in violation thereof.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Do we need to have any discussion, or can we take a vote? Apparently, we can go right to a roll call vote, please.
Mr. Weeks?
Yes.
Ms. Wade?
Yes.
Mrs. Dabbs?
Yes.
Mr. Bergerman?
Yes.
Ms. Casey?
Yes.
Mr. DeMatha?
Yes. Okay, that takes us to the penalty phase. Officer Gasson, any recommendation on the part of the city?
Yeah, I think based on the fact that he is going to have to get the demolition permit and some of the experience I've had with that, it may take a little while. So the city would request 60 days, and then at that point, $50 a day. We're almost out of hurricane season. Hopefully, we won't get another storm. Otherwise, I think that roof will come off.
Okay, you think 60 days would be sufficient for for Mr. Burrows to make those
Last two I
arrangements?
dealt with, they obtained the permit in about 10 to 14 days, and then the demolition occurred within 30.
Okay, so we're gonna stretch it out, give them 60 because of the fact we just went through a hurricane,
Correct, thank you.
okay?
I'm-
Yes, Ms. Wade?
I move that the respondent shall have until December 12th to bring the property into compliance with code sections 6-1, 8-40, 8-52, or suffer a fine of $25 a day for each day thereafter the respondents remain in violation of said code sections.
Okay, we've got a motion and a second. Any need for discussion? I would point out that I think that fine is sufficient. That's just my opinion. Can we get a roll call vote, please?
Mr. Weeks?
Yes.
Ms. Wade?
Yes.
Ms. Dabbs?
Yes.
Mr. Bergerman?
Yes.
Mrs. Vaquesi?
Yes.
And Mr. Demasis?
Yes.
Thank you, that completes your roll call.
All right, can we, before we go on to the next case,
December 12th.
can we get somebody from the building department?
He's right
Okay.
there.
Would you please speak with Mr. Burrows? Mr. Burrows, there's a gentleman right here that's gonna help you. The handsome guy right over there.
It's actually kind of slow.
Thank you, Mr. Burrows. Who's the representative from the city?
That's Derek Silver. He's special.
Derek?
It's Derek Silver, yeah.
Derek?
Derek?
Mr. Burrows needs some insight into possible companies that would be able to do the demolition. All right? If you could help him, we'd appreciate it. Thank you. All right. So sometimes we do good. Oh. That brings us to our next case. And that is, we've got a couple that are complied with. That's good. And that brings us to 107 East Park Street. Anybody here for 107 East Park Street? No, okay. Officer Gasson, if you're ready.
Case number 17-800000536. This is a vacant lot with a city address of 107 East Park Street. The parcel number is 1227-1589982-062-0212, showing being listed as the owner is Limnos Construction and Investment. The packet that's going around, exhibit number 1 are all of my photographs, including my inspection photographs. Exhibit number 2 are all of my notices, to including the notice of violation and notice of hearing. Exhibit number 3 are my administrative docs, to include my case summary, the property appraiser and tax collector records, and the affidavit of posting and a copy of the sign is exhibit number 4. All of my notices were mailed to the property owner of record as determined by the Pinellas County Property Appraiser and Tax Collector Database. And Mr. Chairman, if you would, accept those exhibits as a record into evidence.
All right, and I'd ask the clerk to gather up all of the exhibits as they're passed forward and make them a part of the record. Thank you.
My case started August 26th of this year based on a citizen complaint about an overgrown lot. I conducted my inspection on that date and did find that the lot was overgrown. It is vacant, as I stated earlier. On August 29th of this year, notice of violation was mailed first class and certified mail. On September 8th of this year, the certified notice of violation was returned unsigned, addressed to the property owner, Limnos Construction and Investment, and the registered agent of Tina Dellis. September 14th, I conducted a reinspection. There was no change at that point in time. I scheduled it to be to this code board. On September 14th, the notice of hearing was mailed first class and certified. September 20th, the first class notice of violation was returned unsigned to Limnos Construction and Investment and the registered agent. September 21st, the certified notice of hearing and first class notice of hearings returned unsigned, addressed to Limnos Construction. On September 30th, I posted the property and an affidavit of posting was completed. Yesterday, I conducted the final inspection. There's no change. The property is still not in compliance. So at this point, I'd like the board to consider finding the property in violation of City Code 8-40 and 8-52, the duty of maintenance of private property and the prohibitions for nuisance regarding lot clearing.
Okay, do any of the board members have any questions for Officer Gasson?
It's a complaint.
I'm sorry?
Was this a complaint?
Yes, ma'am. It was another next door neighbor kind of complaint, so it ended up being that one too.
Okay. Any other questions?
Yeah, is this construction company, does it say where it's located, is it Tarpon or?
Well, they have a structure that's directly across the street on Safford, but it appears that that building doesn't exist. It shows 331 North Safford, which ironically will probably be on next month's code board. So,
Thank you.
you're welcome.
Okay.
Sorry. You don't have to make it noisy.
Can I get a motion in this case? Anybody care to make a motion?
I move, based on the testimony, evidence, and facts presented in law, that at the time of the alleged violation, sections 8-40 and 8-52 of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Tarpon Springs was in force and effect. The respondents were in violation thereof.
Okay.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. Any need for discussion among the board members? Apparently not. Can I get a roll call vote, please?
Mr. Weeks?
Yes.
Ms. Wade?
Yes.
Ms. Dabbs?
Yes.
Mr. Bergerman?
Yes.
Ms. Vacasie?
Yes.
Mr. Demosis?
Yes. Okay, and before we go any further, I would ask the code enforcement officer, any recommendation on the part of the city in regards to this case now that we'll move to a penalty phase?
The last case I had, or that we had regarding the same violations was in 2008, so over 9 years ago. So I think it's probably reasonable for 14 days and $50 a day to get that property into compliance. Because as I stated, it appears that the company's out of business and they vacated the area.
Okay, anybody care to make a motion or any need for discussion before we get that? Anybody care to make a motion?
Yeah, I'll make the motion.
Go ahead, sir.
I move that the respondent shall have until September 30th to bring the property into October 30th to bring the property into compliance with code sections 8-40 and 8-52, or suffer a fine of $50 per day for each day thereafter that respondent remains in violation of said code section.
Okay, we've got a motion and a second. Any need for discussion among the board members? Apparently not. Can we get a roll call vote, please?
Mr. Weeks?
Yes.
Ms. Wade?
Yes.
Ms. Dabbs?
Yes.
Mr. Bergerman?
Yes.
Ms. Vacasie?
Yes.
Mr. Demosis?
Yes. Okay, that brings us to our next case, 17-800000481, 199 Grand Boulevard. Anybody here for 199 Grand Boulevard? All right. Can you go over to the podium, ma'am? Bad leg? Sure, sit right down. All right. Can you give us your name, please? Okay. Have you, okay. Any exception with the photographs that we're gonna have placed into the record? But you don't have any exceptions? No, I'm asking about the photographs, okay, that's all I need, that's all I need for right now, okay? No, you haven't done, ma'am, all I wanted to know was, did you have a problem with any of the photographs, that's all. That's fine, that's the question, and you gave us a response, so we're gonna be able to move on. Officer Gasson?
Thank you. This case is before the board to be established. It's case 17-800000481. The property address is the apartment complex at 199 Grand Boulevard, owned by the Annexi Group, with Mary Annexi as the registered agent and the owner of the company. Just for the record, the photographs and evidence that she was presented are an exact copy of what's being presented that I request be put into evidence for the record.
Okay, and again, I'll ask the clerk, gather up all the exhibits as they're passed forward, and please make them a part of the record. Go ahead, officer.
Thank you. Exhibit number 1 are all my photographs to include the inspections. Exhibit number 2 are the notices, including the notice violation and notice of hearing. Exhibit number 3 are my administrative docs, the case summary, property appraiser, tax collector records, the lease and letter from Mary Annexi, police reports, officer emails that I may have had. Exhibit number 4 is the affidavit of posting and a copy of the sign. All of my notices were mailed to the property owner of record as determined by the Pinellas County Property Appraiser and Tax Collectors Database. This case started August 4th of this year. One of the tenants Mary Annexi had in Unit 4B of 199 Grand Boulevard was a party by the name of Zamea Magahi. Zamea is a drug dealer. He was selling drugs, been arrested for possession of cocaine by our agency, and was arrested a second time after selling drugs to somebody that purchased them on her property. At that point in time, shortly after that, I sent a notice of violation via certified mail and first-class mail to Miss Annexi that she needed to basically alleviate that problem by getting the tenant off of her property and properties. He was eventually evicted, or more or less, I think when we sent him the letter, he decided to leave. It should be noted that it was extensive enough that he had put up surveillance cameras outside on the property, and this is the same location where Officer Conduct was murdered. And the cameras alerted Mr. McGahee every time the police showed up, because every time I pulled up in front of that property or any other officer, he came out of his apartment. One of those pictures shows a black male in a white T-shirt standing towards the back. That was a direct result of me pulling up in front near his camera and him coming out of the apartment. So needless to say, on top of the criminal violations that are alleged, the safety issue for everybody involved was part of the other issue that we have under City Ordinance 8-40, which specifically addresses the criminal activity. So moving forward, we did get a green card back from Mary Annexi on August 16th. I did conduct a reinspection. I'd specifically asked her to conduct a legal eviction process. That was never done, but I have no specific requirements that make her do that. We did end up getting some handwritten note from apparently a new tenant that says the other guy's not living there. On September 6th, the notice of violation addressed to the tenant was returned unclaimed. On September 13th, the notice of hearing was mailed, certified and first class. September 18th, Mary Annexi made an office visit and brought a copy of the new lease. September 22nd, another office visit. She had wrote a letter that she won't formally evict a vacant tenant. On September 25th, the notice of hearing green card was returned signed by the owner. On September 26th, we received a phone call from Mary Annexi, informed we told her basically our purpose here is to have her established for her property and properties for allowing the criminal activity to occur on her property under 840. On September 30th, a reinspection, which was basically a paper reinspection. The camera is gone. The tenant, based on our best information, he wouldn't let us inspect the apartment, but he states nobody else is living there. We've got no other information that Jeremiah McGahee is in the city. We frequently encountered him. Since all this started, we have not encountered him anymore, so his whereabouts basically are unknown at this point. As we stated, we have had some contact with the owner. I would like at this time for the board to consider establishing this property, which in turn will establish all of the Annexi Group and Mary Annexi's property for violation of 8-40, which specifically entitles that any condition or use that constitutes a nuisance to the public, generally, as that term is defined in 838, which is continually or repeatedly maintained the interest of the health, safety, and welfare of the citizens of Tarpon Springs, which deals with allowing criminal violations to occur on the property. And that's all I have at this time, Mr. Chairman.
Excuse me, Mr. Chairman, I've been informed that our respondents are sitting in the audience or not, it cannot be heard. So if Mrs. Annexi would like to, we need to make sure this mic gets to her, and I have plenty of cord apparently. So when she testifies, we need to make sure she can. Oh, thank you. Thank you.
Ms. Annexi, at this time, do you have any questions for Officer Gasson?
Well, I want him to know that I had.
Oh, you have to ask questions. As soon as you finish that, all right, then we're gonna give you a chance to present your side of the case. But right now, do you have any questions that you wanna ask him?
One question is, when I rent to people and they seem like good people, I don't know if they do drugs. You know,
Is that a question?
well, yeah. I had no idea that man was doing that on my property. I do a lot of them, and some I didn't, but I got accused once of, they called me a racist, which I am not, because I refused to rent a house I have on 630 East Orange Street. A nice African-American fellow came, and he was very nice, and he says, I'm moving in with my girlfriend. I said, well, I have to interview both of you to see, you know, who they are. He came with a white girl, and she was a drug addict. I could see by just looking at her, her eyes, I mean, oh my God. And I refused. Then I got sued for that, calling me a racist, which I am not. And it was just disgusting. But I don't know, when you can rent to innocent people. I've had it because I have a lot of properties, and they seem good, and then they'll get into do drugs, and they were no record of any kind on them, and then I get in trouble. It's hard. My business is very difficult. The first thing I tell people, do not do drugs on my property. I don't permit that. You want to have a beer and you're in the house, I don't care. Don't drive a car. But it is very difficult.
Okay, well, apparently we've gone from the interrogatory phase. Now you're giving us an explanation, and that's fine. So what I'd like you to do is continue. If there's anything that you want to present on your side of the situation. So anything else you'd like to add?
He is gone. He's totally out of there. And Officer Gasson can go and look anytime he wants. He was honest with his rent. I had no idea he was doing that, and I thought these wires that they have the picture of was Bright House. You know what I'm saying? Or camera surveillance. I can't tell a tenant. I have houses. They put the surveillance to make sure no criminals, you know. And I didn't think anything. I'm allowed to do that, aren't I? Let the tenants put camera surveillance. You can't do that? I don't know. I'm asking.
I'm not the authority to
Can
be
I
able
do
to
that? I can't
answer
tell
that
a
question.
person like they rent houses for me. They want camera surveillance. I didn't know that. See, I thought it was just, but I didn't even know it was there until you told me about it. I thought it was I thought this. Yeah, I saw that. I thought it was part of the Frontier White House, you know, Spectrum now. I'm not a mechanic. My father-in-law was. I'm not at all. I'm an idiot in mechanical things.
Anything else you'd like to add in regards to this particular case?
It's very difficult. I don't want drugs on my property. I'm number one, a mother against drugs. I don't want that. My husband built that wall when we purchased the antique house to divide it when my kids were little growing up. And I converted it from a motel into little apartments. We have brand new electric, plumbing, wiring. It's all little studio apartments, as opposed to having strange people we don't know, you know, go in and out. And it's been all right, but I always get one problem: either a drunk or somebody doing drugs, which I don't know what to do. I'm going to have them sign a paper if they do drugs that they agreed to leave. My lawyer's going to draw one up. That if they do any drugs, they will vacate ASAP within 24 hours.
That may be a solution.
Hope. Probably not.
Okay, anything else you'd like to add?
No, sir.
All right, then. Does anybody have any questions for either Officer Gasson or for Ms. Annexi?
Oh, can I say one more thing?
Certainly, go ahead, ma'am.
He's gone. I didn't even know he left there. He's been out since like August 3rd, 2nd. And the place was very clean, and I rented it to Matt, which I gave Officer Gasson the little lease. It's a simple lease, and Matt is a manager at Wendy's. He's a good boy. He used to rent a house from me off of 54, and he's a good boy. I don't think he's ever done anything, but I can't say someone hasn't done. I'm not a criminal investigator. I need to be.
Does anybody care to make a motion in this case?
All right, so we've got compliance just established. I'll do it.
Go ahead then, please.
Okay, I move, based on the testimony, evidence, facts presented in the law, that at the time of the alleged violations, 8-40 of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Tarpon Springs was in force and effect. At the time of the notice of violation, the respondent was in violation of said code section. However, they are now in compliance.
Any second?
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any need for discussion among the board? Apparently not. Can we get a roll call vote, please?
Mr. Weeks?
Yes.
Ms. Wade?
Yes.
Ms. Stabbs?
Yes.
Mr. Bergman?
Yes.
Ms. Vacasie?
Yes.
Mr. Demasis?
Yes. Okay. And, Mr. Trask, can you please, give, Ms. Annexi a quick review as to, her situation now that this has been, handled by the Code Enforcement Board?
Mrs. Nexi, can you hear me okay? Okay, so you've been found in violation of Section 8-40 of the City Code. You are in compliance as of now. There is no fine. However, if your property goes into violation of Section 8-40 again within the next 5 years, it'll be considered a repeat violation. When it's a repeat violation, the fine can start immediately. So it's absolutely imperative that you make sure that you're not in violation of that code section 8-40. I think that what you need to do is you need to get some advice from an attorney and have that attorney give you some direction on what you should and should not be doing. Okay? This board can't give you the legal advice that you're looking for. Okay? Understand. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, it was a tragedy, and I think everybody in Tarpon Springs feels that it was a terrible tragedy. Thank you. Okay, that brings us to our next case. It's 17-80000548759 Seminole Boulevard. Anybody here for 759 Seminole Boulevard? Apparently not. Officer Gasson, if you're ready, you may proceed.
Thank you. This is another case to be established before the board. It's currently in compliance. Case number 17-800000548. It's a vacant lot with a city address of 759 Seminole Boulevard. The parcel number is 112715877860190010. Property showing owned by Nishat and Afat Malik or Malak. The exhibits going around, Mr. Chairman, exhibit number 1 are all of my photographs to include my inspections. Exhibit number 2 are all of my notices to include the notice of violation and notice of hearing. Exhibit number 3 are my administrative documents to include the case summary, property appraiser, and tax collector records, and any emails. Exhibit number 4 is the affidavit of posting and a copy of the sign. And all of my notices were mailed to the property owner of record as determined by the Pinellas County property appraiser and the tax collector database. And again, please accept all of my exhibits into the record as evidence.
All right, I'd advise the clerk to collect all the exhibits as they're passed down and make them a part of the record.
Thank you. August 30th was my initial inspection based on a citizen complaint about the lot being overgrown. Whereas it'd been mowed completely in the past. It is a 10,000 square foot lot, but it had been mowed completely in the past by this owner.
I'm sorry, did you say it was a 10,000 square?
It is greater than 10,000 square feet,
Thank
but
you.
it has been by this owner mowed completely. So the 30-15 exception is not not applicable. There are branches dumped on the property. There's Brazilian pepper trees on the lot, and there are vines growing in the trees and the power lines. On September 6th of this year, I sent a notice of violation and a notice of hearing, certified mail and first-class mail. On September 22nd, the owner called stating the property was ready for a reinspection. I wasn't able to get out there at that time. On September 25th, the notice of violation and the notice of hearing were returned signed by the owner. September 28th, the owner called stating he was ready for a reinspection. I posted the property on September 30th. I did meet with the owner on the property shortly after September 30th and discussed with him what needed to be done to bring it into compliance. On October 7th, he contacted me again requesting another inspection, and it was on that date in compliance as it is right now. We've had a couple of conversations with the owner trying to establish with him what the purpose of being established is. So he seems to understand that. At this point in time, Mr. Chairman, I'd like the board to consider a violation of 8-40, which is in compliance, 8-52, which is also in compliance, 13302 and 13303, which deal with the applicability and maintenance of trees and those exceptions. And all of those codes are currently in compliance. And that's all I have at this time.
A question for you, officer.
Yes, sir.
Has this particular party come in front of you how many times previously?
2012, 13, 14, and 16. Hence the reason why it's here to be established.
All right, well, I just wanted to determine that. Does anybody else have any questions for Officer Gass?
Does he live in this town?
He's Pinellas County.
Oh.
I think he lives in Oldsmar.
Okay, thanks.
I can tell you here in a second.
Anybody else have any questions for Officer Gasson? Can I get a motion in this case? Anybody
Yes.
care to make a motion? Yes, Mr.
I move,
Weeks.
based on the testimony, evidence, and the facts presented in the law, that at the time of the alleged violation, sections 8-40, 8-52, 133.02, 133.03 of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Tarpon Springs was in force and effect. Respondent was in violation thereof,
And he's now in compliance.
but he's now in compliance.
All right,
Second.
we've got a motion and a second. Any discussion among the board? Any need for discussion? Apparently not. We'll go for roll call vote, please.
Mr. Weeks?
Yes.
Ms. Wade?
Yes.
Ms. Dabbs?
Yes.
Mr. Bergman?
Yes.
Mr. Casey?
Yes.
Mr. DeMattis?
Yes. Okay, that brings us to our next case. It's 17-8000569, repeat violator 385 Whitcomb Boulevard. Sir, I assume that the clerk has handed you some photographic exhibits that are going to be made a part of the record. Any exceptions or problems with those?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I'm looking at the pictures, page 1, page 2. I do not see any overgrowth. And page 3, pictures of the overgrowth is bushes and debris. This was after the hurricane, immediately after the hurricane. And in order to take this picture, he had to trespass on my property, and I never gave him permission to do that, sir. So I don't think that should be included as an exhibit.
Any response, Officer Gasson?
Well, I have a zoom lens on my camera that I stand on the right of way and I can zoom in, so I don't have to trespass on people's property. Secondly, the growth's over 12 inches. It doesn't have to do with the debris. You can clearly see it once it goes around, especially on what would be the north side of the property. It's over 12 inches. I can estimate that. So that's the overgrowth. So that would be my response, that they were, 1, I was in a legal position, and 2, there is a violation, which we will discuss.
All right, what about the position that the photographs were taken after the hurricane? It may be hurricane damage.
Well, they were dated September 20th, and I got the complaint, yes, after the hurricane about the overgrown lawn. I don't think the hurricane made his grass grow.
And anything you care to add?
Yes, sir. There were numerous rains connection before and certainly after the hurricane. The hurricane was on September the 10th and 11th. The notice of violation was mailed out on the 21st, I believe, on the 21st. I don't know when he went and saw the property, but it was immediately after the hurricane, and there's debris all over the city, and I took a ride around before I even came today, and there's still debris around there
Okay, but I don't
that
think,
hasn't been
I
picked
think
up.
that the officers indicated that he's, and please correct me if I misstate this, Officer Gaston, you're not concerned about the debris, is that correct?
Correct. The lot was overgrown and needed maintenance.
Okay, talking about the lot being overgrown, not about the debris, and.
Okay, I don't see that in pictures 1 and 2, and even if he used a high-powered lens, he would have had to pick up some of the front yard part, and he didn't. So I question this picture number 3. It appears he trespassed on the property in order to take this picture.
Okay,
And
I'm
I don't see any measurement, I don't see any rulers or anything on page 1 and 2 to show, and it doesn't appear to me as being overgrown. And come on, after a hurricane, even if it's just slightly over 12 inches, even if it is, I'm not even saying it is, but give me a break after a hurricane. This is just, I think it's outrageous.
Okay, I'm gonna accept the photographs, and we'll make each board member will make their own determination as far as the length, and your position's established. The officers made a response, so.
Yes, sir.
We'll accept them and move on.
And I have a further objection.
Go ahead.
In this package, I responded to him. I received the notice of violation via certified letter on September the 23rd. I responded immediately back to him the same day and told him that the yard had been cleaned up. I sent him an email, and I don't see that as an exhibit in this package where I responded and told him that everything was already clean.
Okay. Officer Gasson, any response to that position?
Regardless of whether or not there was an email, I put him in compliance on the 23rd, so it's a moot point.
Okay,
So
officers indicating that you were placed in compliance on that date, so obviously, that's not an issue.
Okay.
All right.
I'm just saying it's not a complete package, but
Okay.
as long as I was put in compliance
Yeah,
on the
he's acknowledged
23rd.
that, Officer Gasson's acknowledged that you're in compliance as of the
Okay.
23rd.
I've got several questions for Officer Gasson when it's time.
All right, and we'll give you an opportunity to do that when it's time. Officer Gasson, if you're ready to present the city's position, please.
Thank you. As I stated earlier, this is a repeat violator case, and it is currently in compliance. The case number is 17-800000569. It's an occupied residence at 385 Wickham Boulevard, owned by Harry and Anna Patsalides. Exhibit number 1, and just also, Mr. Chairman, for the record, the exhibits that were shown, Mr. Patsalides, were an exact copy of what is being entered into evidence. All of my photographs, to include the inspections, are exhibit number 1. Exhibit number 2 are all of my notices, to include the notice of hearing and as a repeat violator. Exhibit number 3 are my administrative documents, to include the case summary, property appraiser, and tax collector records. Exhibit number 4 is an affidavit of posting and a copy of the sign. All of my notices were mailed to the property owner of record as determined by the Pinellas County Property Appraiser and Tax Collector database. And as before, if you would, please accept all my exhibits as a record into evidence.
And all the exhibits will be collected by the clerk and made a part of the record. Sir, any questions? You indicated you had questions for Officer Gasson. You may
I
proceed.
do. May I refer to Mr. Burrow's case just for a second?
Go ahead.
Okay, I believe I heard him say that he paid a roofer and the roofer ran away and didn't do the job.
Objection to relevance.
Well,
I'm gonna,
it sounds like he was
I'll make the
defrauded.
rulings here, and
Yeah.
I'll allow it.
So
Let's see
I was
where-
just gonna pass that on to Officer Gasson. Maybe he can provide it to his office, the detectives, to look into it.
Okay.
Because it sounds like he got defrauded and wasn't able to comply because somebody ran away with his
All right,
money.
let's go on with your case then, sir.
Yes, sir. Okay.
Mr. Chairman, did you want me to finish my testimony, or I just covered the exhibits? I haven't gone through everything else.
Oh,
yet.
I'm sorry. Go ahead then, Officer Gasson.
Thank you.
I stand corrected. Let the officer complete his testimony, and then you'll have your chance to ask a
Okay.
question.
Thank you. September 20th, I received a citizen complaint about the property being overgrown and need to be in maintenance. I conducted the inspection and determined it was overgrown and needed maintenance. As I stated, the property owner is Mr. Patsalides, who's present. He is a repeat violator under case 16-387 for the property at 1401 Burnt Oak. That was heard by this code board on October 13th of 2016 for a violation of section 8-40. There was other associated violations, but they're not pertinent to this case. On September 20th, the notice of hearing of repeat violator was mailed certified and first class to the owners. On September 23rd, he was placed in compliance. I had gotten some information, and it may have been an email that wasn't included in the record, but I went and inspected it as soon as I possibly could, and it was in compliance. So basically, the property was out of compliance from September 20th to September 23rd for a total of 3 days. On September 25th, the certified notice of repeat violator was returned unsigned, but it was showing that it was delivered on September 23rd at 12:18 p.m. I did another reinspection because I had received that email. I'm sorry, this explains this. On September 26th, I received his email. He stated it was in compliance on September 23rd. Because of the fact that he stated he was in compliance and he was on the 26th, we went back to the 23rd to show him as his compliance date.
All right.
So I stand corrected of physically inspecting it on the 23rd. I physically inspected it on the 26th, but based on his email stating it was in compliance on the 23rd, giving him the benefit of the doubt for a total of 3 days.
Good.
So I posted the sign on September 30th to come to this code board, and we have had some contact with the owner. At this point in time, as I stated, he's a repeat violator for 8-40, which is the duty and maintenance of private property. There was an associated 8-52, which is the mowing of the lot, but it's in compliance, so it's not to be considered by this board at this time. And Mr. Chairman, I have nothing further at this point.
All right, and now, Mr. Patsalides, you may continue with your questions for Officer Gadd.
Yes, sir. The prior violation that made me a repeat violator, you just said it was, I don't know what section, but what was it for?
8-40.
What is that?
I don't recall off the top of my head, sir,
Okay.
but it was City Ordinance 8-40.
All right. Thank you. All right. The other clarification, I sent you the email on September 23rd, the same day I got the letter. So you just mentioned you got it on the 26th.
No.
I got a copy of my email to show you the date that I sent it to you.
I stated that you said on the 23rd that it was in compliance. So
What did you say on the 26th?
that I inspected it. I said, received an
Okay,
email
but-
advising the property was ready to be inspected on 9/23. So I put it into compliance on 9/23
Okay.
based on your statement of it being in compliance.
Okay. I just wanted to clarify that. All right. How did you receive the complaint?
Citizen complaint, I'd have to look through the record to see.
Yeah, give me the name of the citizen, please.
Jacob Carr, which I believe is a city councilman.
Yes, he is. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, and I'll repeat what I said earlier. I don't know what date. What date did you receive that complaint, sir?
Would have been before the 20th of September. I don't know the exact date that we received it, but I conducted the initial inspection on September 20th.
Okay, and that was approximately 9 days after the hurricane.
Okay. The 13th, okay, 7 days maybe? I'll give you that. 9
Okay.
days. We'll go with 9 days.
All right, well, I'm just trying to establish that people haven't had a chance to do anything because it's a hurricane. Even trying to find contractors after the hurricane was almost impossible. So, in looking at these pictures, I don't see a big violation of overgrown yard as from pages 1 and 2. Okay. Specifically, what was the complaint about?
Your lot being overgrown and in need of maintenance.
The grass, right?
Yes, sir.
Did it have anything to do with the debris?
No, sir.
Well, that's picture number 3. The photograph number 3 shows debris.
That's what you're contending. That's not what I'm contending.
Well, I see leaves and branches
I see
on the
overgrown yard.
grass. Huh?
I see overgrown yard. So your opinion is it's
Okay.
not, my opinion
All
is
right.
it is.
All right, so you stated after you got the complaint, you went out to the property and you observed it. What did you do next, sir?
Drove back to the police department, went and got lunch. I mean, I inspected it.
Right, and you go back to the office, what's the process there as far as, what do? Do you prepare the notice right away? Do you certify the letter and send it out right away?
Any of
What-
that,
what's your
actually,
process?
I email my clerk and tell her you're in compliance and she takes care of it.
Okay, the clerk does it, right?
That's correct.
Who's the clerk? Beth?
And at that time, Barb Templeton was still in the office. So she may have assisted.
Okay. Did you have occasion to go out to the property a second, third, or fourth time?
No need to, you're in compliance. On the 23rd, you stated you're on compliance. I
Right.
checked it on the 26th, it was. I'm not going to keep going out there.
Okay, so those were the only two times you went to the property?
Mr. Patsalides, your property is at or it's Whitcomb and Ashland on the corner. I probably see it
Every day.
20 times a day. I drive by there.
Okay.
So
But
what exactly is your
officially,
question?
officially,
I'm
how
at
many
work.
times did you go to the property
Okay, 150 times I've driven by that property and looked at it,
officially?
approximately.
All right, I don't know that arguing semantics here is going to promote either side in this case. So let's try to move along with things that are pertinent, if there are any other questions that need to be asked.
Well, there is, because he said he went back on the 26th and found it in compliance, yet there's a sign there that was posted on September the 30th, 4 days later, displaying to the public that I was not in compliance. Why would he do that? Why did you do that?
You have to be notified of this board hearing, and our policy is, by state statute, either post the property or post it in the newspaper. We have a choice. We choose to post the property. You have to be given the opportunity to know there is a hearing. So that's why it's posted.
So
just
you
like
went back the
everybody
third
else was
time?
posted. So yes, I went there a third time and posted,
Okay.
as I stated in my testimony.
All right, you sent out a letter to me, which was certified, which I received on the 23rd. Then you also, you sent me a letter that was the first letter, let me pull my exhibits out here. The first letter is postmarked September 21st, and I received it on September 23rd. And I signed for it, contrary to what you said. I did sign the certificate, the certified mail receipt, and the post office person took it back.
Okay.
Okay. Then, I mean, you agree with that? You don't need to see the exhibit?
I don't know, it was entered into evidence, the green card was, so.
Okay. Then, on September 27th, I received a letter in regular mail, September 27th, which was mailed out on September 25th. I'd like to introduce that as Exhibit 2. I want the first one to be Exhibit 1 and this one to be Exhibit 2.
It's already entered into evidence, the original is.
No, my point here is,
Not in cross during cross.
this was after I complied, and you're sending me a letter.
Excuse me,
Stating-
sir. Right now, you can't present exhibits until it's your side to present your case. Right now, you're supposed to be
Okay.
asking questions.
Why would you mail a letter, another letter, through regular mail after you mailed a certified letter 4 days later, 5 days later from the first letter?
Because certified mail goes out faster than regular mail? I'd have to actually refer to a post office employee to see about that, sir.
So is that who prepares the certified letter? Do you
No,
take
sir.
it to the post
We
office?
prepare them both at the same time. We give you the added privilege of also sending it regular mail, because sometimes people have a tendency to ignore and not sign green cards for certified mail. So we're just trying to give you the benefit. Now, I'll tell you just one other thing just to help you explain that.
Yes, sir.
You're a repeat violator. I don't have to give you any notice. Okay?
Yeah.
So with that being said, we were quite nice in getting it to you quite rapidly, but the process of mail, I can't help you with.
All right, let me ask a quick question, because I want to try to get to the real true points that are important in this case. Are you saying that it's standard practice to put it out both certified and regular?
Yep.
And that's not just for this gentleman, it's for every case?
Every single person
All right,
we
that's
send out,
standard for the operating procedure? All right, then I don't think that we need to go over that particular point
No,
any
sir.
further anywhere.
Other than the regular mail came on the 25th, came on the 27th, and by then I had already complied.
That's not an issue.
Okay.
You've gotten credit for being in compliance on the 23rd. You called and he took your word for it.
Yeah,
even
but
though
if
he didn't
I-
expect it until the 26th.
Yeah.
That's not an issue. There's no reason to belabor that, is there?
Yes, sir. It could be an issue because if I wasn't home when the post person came for me to sign that certified letter, it would have gone back.
Okay, that's...
And then I wouldn't have gotten notice that there was a violation
Please.
until the
Let's
27th.
not make more out of this than we
Okay.
need to. Let's just move along. We're arguing over things apparently just to argue. We don't need to do that. Any other questions that you have to ask? And then we'll give you a chance to present your side of the...
Well, I have exhibits from the Pinellas County Code Enforcement.
That's for when you present your side. Right now, I'm asking you, do you have any further questions? Any further questions, please, or not?
Yes, sir. I think Officer Gasson mentioned that he doesn't recall what the last violation was that made me, whatever the terminology is, to become a repeat violator, but it was for a green pool.
Questions?
Okay, right now, again, you're restricted to asking questions. I can't put it any more clearly than that. If you have
Okay.
questions, ask them. If not, we're going to give you a chance to
I think,
present your side of the case.
Yes, sir, I do have a question.
Go ahead, then.
Has there been any prior violations at this address in the last 10 years, sir?
It shows in our record, Cindy Sander in 2013 handled a sign case. 2008, there were 2 cases, abandonment of vessels and parking commercial vehicles. And then more than 10 years, there's a couple others.
At that address?
385 Wickham Boulevard, yes, sir.
Not that I'm aware of.
Sorry.
Well, you asked a question.
Yes, sir.
And you got an answer.
Yes, sir. And did you observe any limbs or trees down in the yard when you went out there? Trees, debris?
I recall.
Okay, and again, sir, debris isn't an issue. Talking about the grass, it's not talking about debris.
There was a tree down and there's debris, and you can't cut the grass unless you cut the tree and remove the debris first.
Okay, let me ask the question. Was there a certain amount of debris that would preclude somebody from cutting the grass, in your opinion?
Apparently not. He mowed it in 3 days.
All right, then. Let's move on, please. Any other questions before I give you an opportunity to present your side?
Yes, sir.
Go ahead, sir.
Okay, I'll wait for him. After the last code board hearing, I contacted attorney Jerry Theophilopoulos, also known as Jerry T. And did he have a conversation with you about future code violations?
Regarding North Pinellas, yes.
No, in general, future code violations.
Or you asked me the question, I answered it.
Okay, well,
Any other questions?
yes. Did
Go
you
ahead.
agree to notify him about any future violations before you issued a letter of violation?
I don't recall the conversation with the third party at this time.
You're under oath, sir.
That's
I
why
would-
I
I would
answered the
ask that
question in the
question
manner
one
in which
more
I
time.
did.
I don't think you need to ask the question one more time. He is under oath. He's
Okay.
answered your question. We're not going to
Well,
we're not impugning anybody's
Well,
integrity here.
he agreed to do that before he issued a violation.
Your position.
Well,
He's
I
presenting
have
his-
I have the attorney who's in court and couldn't be here today.
Well-
I'd like to postpone this hearing until I can get the attorney here because he agreed to contact me or contact the attorney before he issued a violation, and he issued a violation before he did that.
Even if-
Because I was going to appeal the last case,
He shouldn't
and
have
because he agreed to do that, I didn't appeal it.
So you're 3/4 of the way through the case.
I'd like to just have you move along, please. I don't.
All right,
I don't
for the
think that's a
record-
big enough issue.
Well,
I think that you're trying to argue just for the sake of arguing, and I have to say I'm losing patience here because we're really not progressing, okay? Something that I think doesn't
Okay.
warrant this amount of interrogatory.
all right, based on your comments, I'm not going to ask any more questions.
That's
of
fine.
Officer Gasson.
All right, then. Now, if you care to present your side of the case, go right ahead.
Yes, sir. Since the postmark of the letters does not appear to be an issue,
Okay?
like to present, first of all, the reason I'm concerned about becoming a repeat violator, and the reason I was so concerned last time, and the reason I contacted an attorney, is because I own about 20 properties here. And the last time I became a violator, a repeat violator, was again after Hurricane Hermine, and it was for a green pool. And I think it was it was from the rains. I had letters, emails from the pool company that managed the pool from both Pinch a Penny and Certified Pool that the rains washed algae and dirt from the neighbor's yard into the pool and caused it to be green. I think Mr. Is it Donald Bergman? Is that it? Somebody last time asked me a question on the day that Officer Gasson went to the pool, was it green? And I said, yes, but it was an act of nature. It was beyond my control because it was the Hurricane Hermine rains that washed the algae in there, and I had the exhibits that I provided to Officer Gasson.
Sir,
I'm just
well,
giving you
we're talking-
background.
I understand, but it kind of, I'm not sure how that
Well,
apply-
because this is also a hurricane, and this is a year later, almost to the date
All right.
of the last one, and it's after a hurricane.
Okay, I think it would be more germane if we deal with 385 Whitcomb Boulevard.
Okay, I want to issue these exhibits here, sir. if
Okay.
I may. Who do I give them to?
Give them to the clerk.
Okay, let me explain what they are.
All right, go ahead.
Sir, go back to the microphone.
Does Officer Gasson, have you already seen those?
She's gonna bring it to me. Thank you.
On September 13th, I contacted grass and tree people right after the hurricane to come and cut the lawn at this address. They couldn't cut it until they cleaned up the debris in the tree. They did that, then they cut the grass, and they billed me. I've got pictures of my phone calls, my cell phone, which I can give you live if you want, showing my calls to lawn services, but one of them is the one that ended up doing it, and that was on September 13th, 7 days before Officer Gasson went there. Now, again, it was after the hurricane, and these people were busy, and they didn't get out there till the 23rd, which was 10 days later. So I was compliant. I was doing what I was supposed to be doing, trying to clean up my property. So I'd like to present those showing my phone calls.
I'd ask the clerk to make those a permanent part of the
Well,
record.
he's got the opportunity to object to those exhibits. He needs to read them, see them first. So
All right.
there may be an objection. If not, obviously.
Any
They have a
objection?
name and a phone number. I could build a name in my phone right now.
I
and throw it, but-
understand.
but- so
We'll,
I would
we'll
object
judge
to the relevance
we'll
to them,
judge the
that's all.
exhibits on their merit.
Right. He's
Okay.
got two pictures of a screenshot that says Byron's grass and tree and city lawn and tree, another Byron's grass and tree. I mean, okay, he's got pictures that he.
Okay,
called
we
the
can,
tree
I
company.
think the board can make their own conclusions, so.
I just would
You
like
take
to note
any-
it that what relevance and how you would possibly.
Well,
prove it
he's
actually-
indicated, the witness is testifying what relevance he thinks they have, so
Okay.
we'll decide.
Okay, this is the next exhibit.
Go ahead.
This is the bill from the tree service, which identifies 385 Whitcomb Boulevard, and billed me $800 for cutting the trees and the limbs, hauling them away, and then cutting the grass.
Okay, fine. Anything else?
I'm not going to object to that because it's been compliant.
Okay, we'll accept the bill. Go ahead, sir.
Well, even before I got the letter, even before my attorney contacted me to tell me about any violations, which he didn't, I contacted him, I was ahead of the curve trying to take care of my properties. You will see in that bill that 385 Whitcomb is not the only property that I got billed for. I was trying to clean up my properties right after the hurricane, which I did. So I don't think I'm non-compliant. I've never been non-compliant, and I don't deserve any fines, and I don't really deserve to be a repeat violator, and that's my position.
All right. Any questions?
Wait a minute, I've got a witness here, the tenant at the place, regarding the height of the grass and the debris and the yard, to verify or back up what I stated.
All right, well,
I'd like to call-
before that, Officer Gasson has an opportunity to ask you questions.
Sure.
Any questions, Officer Gasson?
Yes, briefly. You recall being established at 1401 Burnt Oak last year, correct?
Yes, sir. That was
thank
after
you.
the hurricane, like I said.
Okay, but you recall
And it
being
was
at this board
active
hearing.
nature
and
that you charged me
recalled
with.
being established, correct?
The board, you didn't do it, the board established me based on your testimony.
Okay, so you recall that, and you recall it was violation 8-40, correct?
Yeah, a
Okay.
green pool.
Did you get the yard mode? At 385
That
Whitcomb?
wasn't part of it. The yard.
At 385
if
Whitcomb,
you
did you mow the
remember,
yard?
I did that immediately. I cut the limbs. You had identified tree
Patzelides?
limbs and yard. That was done within the first week.
Okay, what
And
did
then
you have
the
it
pool
done?
was cleaned,
I'm
but
not
then it got
asking you about that
dirty
property,
again.
Sir, I'm asking you about 385 Whitcomb now. Did you get the yard mowed?
No, no, you're fine.
The yard done when?
At 385 Whitcomb Boulevard, did you get the yard mowed?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Why would you
I
get it
didn't.
mowed?
The company did.
Okay, so it was mowed. And we both agreed that it was out of compliance from the 20th to the 23rd,
No,
correct?
I don't agree with
Okay.
that. It was a
Well, it was
hurricane.
the 23rd,
And there were
correct?
debris all over the place.
Was it mowed on the 23rd?
You should have used a little better judgment and common sense before citing me.
Was
There
it
was
mowed on the
debris
23rd?
everywhere.
All right, listen, I'm not gonna,
That's
this
the only
isn't
question I have
helping
is, was it
anything,
mowed
the
on the
two of you
23rd?
fellows
That's all.
arguing back and forth. I'm not gonna tolerate it any longer
understand.
on either side, all right? Because it's not moving it's not moving us any forward. If you have any questions.
That was my last question, is
All right.
just to confirm with him that it was mowed on the 23rd.
I think we've established,
Okay.
I think both sides if we can agree on anything, everybody in this room can agree that on the 23rd it was mowed. I don't think that's an issue any longer. So let's. You have no further questions?
No, I do not.
All right, do you have anything? You have a witness now
Yes,
that you'd
sir.
like to present. Ma'am?
And I have one question of Officer Gasson.
Well,
Does he send letters to the tenants as well? Do you send them to the address? Because she didn't know anything about it.
In some cases, if we actually know, then they may add another owner or another listed property and send that letter, but we're not required to. It's an optional thing.
Okay, but you knew it was a tenant property because my address is somewhere
Didn't do the
different.
letters, sir. So I didn't add the additional tenant to the
Okay.
system.
I'm
okay,
just
why
saying
don't
she
you
wasn't
present
aware of
your-
it.
Present your witness, sir.
Over here?
Yeah, that'd be fine. And she was sworn in at the beginning?
Yes, she was.
Yes,
Raise
okay,
your arm,
very good.
hands.
Ma'am, if you'd let us know your name, please? Okay, and if you'd speak up nice and loud for us, thank you. Go ahead, sir.
Okay, what was was there
Hang on a
tree
second,
falling and limbs?
Just a moment. Here, wait a minute. One.
Okay,
Excuse me, I'm sorry for the interruption.
all right, Bobby.
Sorry. Could you get close enough here? Would that be okay? Thank you. Sorry for the interruption.
No, fine.
Is this okay?
Can you bring the microphone as close to you as possible? The idea is,
okay?
if you want to hold it, that's fine.
Is this okay?
All right.
You hear
let's-
me?
Yes.
Go ahead.
Okay.
Was there fallen limbs and debris on the property?
Yes, there was.
Okay, you reviewed the exhibits, pages 1 and 2. Did you feel that the grass was overgrown?
Not terribly. Not enough for a code enforcement violation, I don't
You
believe.
need to speak up, ma'am. You
I
got a
said I
microphone.
don't
Speak into the
believe
microphone
enough
if you can.
for a code enforcement violation.
Okay, will you tell the board, please, where you were before the hurricane and after the hurricane?
Yes, before the hurricane, my entire family was evacuated by the fire department.
Speak into the microphone,
By the
please.
fire department. We spent 8 days at a special needs shelter in Dunedin, first at the middle school, and then when that emptied, we were transferred, because we still didn't have electric, we were transferred to the Dunedin Community Center for special needs shelter.
Okay. Any other questions, sir?
Well, probably the point is that it's my responsibility to mow the lawn since I am living there. And just prior to the hurricane, I bought a lawn. I had been paying someone to mow the grass, which I couldn't afford to keep up. So I bought a lawnmower. I already had a weed whacker, had intended on doing the lawn, and then the hurricane news was upon us. And I have 5, including myself, I have 5 family members who are disabled, 4 of whom live at the house. And I wasn't worried about the lawn. I was worried about getting prepared for an evacuation because we live right across the street from water, and I knew we would all be evacuated. And with my house, I mean, my husband has Parkinson's and is diabetic. He has dementia. It uses a walker. I use a wheelchair. My son is severely disabled from a stroke. He's blind. He's in a wheelchair. My sister has spinal cord injuries. She's a quadriplegic. She is in a wheelchair. And I have another son that doesn't live with us that has developmental disabilities that I am responsible for. So my concern was getting ready for the hurricane and the evacuation if that's what we needed to do, which was what we needed to do. And as a matter of fact, I was in such a state of shock. I should say that 3 of my family members need physical care, and I was the physical care, and I get physical care at home. So when I got home, I didn't notify Mr. Patsalides immediately about the fallen limbs because, like I said,
I was in shock from the evacuation. We came home to no food in the house because the electricity had been out and everything was spoiled. Trying to get everybody back into the swing of things, it was a while before I even notified Mr. Patzelides of the issue. And then when I did, he got a service over to take care of the situation.
And Ms. Voorhees, you couldn't cut the grass because of the limbs and the debris that had fallen, correct?
Right.
All right. Anything else, ma'am?
That's pretty much it.
Okay.
We're just now kind of getting back into the swing of things, and I will be keeping that yard immaculate.
Okay, thank you. Let me get that microphone. Oh, okay. All right.
Motion.
Summary?
I have one more comment. The city was in a state of emergency during this period. All of Pinellas County was. I just think it's totally irresponsible to issue a violation during a state of emergency. And I'll leave it with that, sir.
All right.
Our board.
Does anybody have any questions for Officer Gasson or for Mr. Patzelides? No questions? You have a question, Ms. Wade? No? Okay. Does anybody care to make a motion in this case?
I would.
Go ahead.
I move, based on the testimony, evidence, facts presented in law, that Mr. Patzelides was in violation of Section 8-40 of the Tarpon Springs Code from 9/20 to 9/23, and a fine of $200 per day for 3 days, or a fine of $600. In addition, I move that the city be awarded $120.50 for the costs that occurred in prosecuting the case.
Second.
She has the original affidavit of compliance. We didn't present that until after the case was heard. Or I'm sorry, not the affidavit of compliance, the affidavit of prosecution costs.
You gave us that information prior.
Okay.
Any discussion in regards to this?
The
Yeah.
question.
Go
Was
ahead.
was the city, were we in an emergency situation the 20th through the 23rd?
Oh.
Are you asking me or
No,
the board?
I'm just asking, it's a discussion with the
Oh,
board.
sorry.
I'm sorry.
No, we were.
I've got an exhibit here. Pinellas County was in a state of emergency. The whole county was.
Well,
I didn't introduce it because I didn't think
No,
that you wanted to hear that, but I've got,
I think that this is our
yeah,
discussion.
right now,
yeah,
I
I just
live
want to
in
make sure it's
anything
correct.
to it, Mr.
I live in Tarpon Springs, and Mr. Patzelides lives in Oldsmar. I lived in Tarpon Springs. By the 20th, there was no emergency
No.
here.
Okay, yeah. My lawn was mowed, my stuff was done.
I'm just a single person all by myself. I had cleaned up my yard
Yeah.
and my two 80-year-old neighbors' yards by 9 Monday morning after
Right.
the storm.
Yeah, I had my
That
my
grass
yard
was growing
mowed
for
on
longer
the
than
20th.
Okay.
I mean,
that
on the
many days.
12th.
Yes.
I just have a question. Can I ask, Officer
Go ahead.
Gasson?
Go
In
ahead, Ms.
reference
Deb.
to the fine, is that what the book is, or is that just something that was suggested
That's solely up to the board. I have no suggestion as far as the fine goes on a repeat
on
violator.
this? Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, I would have to say, I feel that that fine is pretty substantial. I'm not
Yeah,
sure
I
that
do
I agree
too.
with two, you
You can
indicate
vote.
$200 a day?
That was the maximum I was told we were allowed.
$500 a day is the maximum.
Okay.
Your motion is 200.
Well,
you.
and I don't have a problem with it because this is just that same old case where the owner doesn't live in town, and you know we have to keep telling these out of town owners to mow their lawn.
All right.
So I'm good with that amount.
Well, then let's take a vote. Can we get a roll call vote, please?
Mr. Weeks?
Yes.
Ms. Wade?
Yes.
Ms. Dabbs,
No.
Mr. Bergman,
Yes.
Ms. Casey,
Yes.
Mr. Demosas.
No.
Motion carries.
And the motion passes. Is that correct?
Yes, it does.
All right, then. Mr. Trask, if you'd like to, and I apologize, sir, I called you by the wrong last name,
That's all right, sir.
okay? But Mr. Trask, if you would,
Mr. Pat Sleeves, you've been found in violation, a repeat violation of Section 8-40 of the code. You've been found to be in violation for 3 days, from September 20th through September 23rd. You've been fined $200 per day, or a total of $600 for those 3 days of violations. The code enforcement clerk will be issuing an order that will be signed by the code board chairman that should be arriving at home in the next 10 days or so. Okay? Thank you. No, we're going to send it to the address that is listed at the tax collector's office, so, yeah. The hearing is closed. We're moving on. We have lots of other cases.
okay, we have affidavits of compliance.
I move to accept the affidavit of compliance on case number 17-800000074.
Okay, any second?
Oh, you're going to do all of them?
Well,
because
there's
we've got
fines
we've
involved
got
with
three
the
Oh, I
rest,
see.
so we have to do
You're
them
absolutely right.
separately.
I'll second the first motion here.
Okay.
Okay, can we have a vote on 17-800000074?
Mr. Weeks,
Yes.
Ms. Wade,
Yes.
Ms. Dabbs,
Yes.
Mr. Bergman,
Yes.
Mr. Casey,
Yes.
Mr. Demosas.
Yes. Okay, that brings us to 974 Sunrise Drive.
I move to accept the affidavit of compliance on case number 17-800000323, with, and award the city $192 for prosecution costs.
Any motion, any second on that
Second.
motion? Okay, any need for discussion? Apparently not. Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Weeks,
Yes.
Ms. Wade,
Yes.
Ms. Dabbs,
Yes.
Mr. Bergman,
Yes.
Ms. Casey,
Yes.
Mr. Demosas.
Yes.
Okay, I move to accept the affidavit of compliance on case number 17-800000451, and to award the city $192 for prosecution costs.
Second.
All right, we've got a motion and a second. Any need for discussion? Apparently not. Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Weeks,
Yes.
Ms. Wade,
Yes.
Ms. Dabbs,
Yes.
Mr. Bergman,
Yes.
Ms. Casey,
Yes.
Mr. Demosas.
Yes.
I move to accept the affidavits of compliance on case number 17-800000497, and to award the city $163 for prosecution costs.
Second.
Okay, any need for discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Weeks,
Yes.
Ms. Wade,
Yes.
Ms. Dabbs,
Yes.
Mr. Bergman,
Yes.
Ms. Casey,
Yes.
Mr. Demosas.
Yes. Okay, that brings us to a item of old business, a request for fine reduction. I believe the information was in your packets that were sent out. This is for a vacant lot south of Mayor's West Side. It's case 16-800000056.
First, we need to decide if we want to hear it. Is that correct?
You can do it by way of a motion to approve the request or deny the request, and if you approve it, you know the dollar amount you're wishing to accept as a reduction. You can do it all in one motion.
Can we ask, before we even make a motion, can we ask for any input, if there is any, from the city's representative?
Yes, if you have a question.
He said he had none.
He's already,
I
there's a
submitted
cover
a
memo
memo.
on that.
Well, I understand that, and here's my personal problem with this. is that you've indicated I have no recommendation for request of a fine request. Okay, a reduction request. The fine, can we get a figure of what the fine is?
It's $9,550.
How much is it?
$9,550.
All right, that's a substantial sum, and I guess what I don't understand is the city, I would think would present a position, whether it's presented through the code enforcement board or the city attorney or someone in the city would want to give us a recommendation as to what they feel.
Based on the last time we had a code board request for a reduction and the fact that the rules state that it's supposed to be solely based on the letter that's presented before the board, there really was, so basically what I'm getting at is it's the
wait a
board's
minute,
decision.
I've been on this board for 4 years. Today's my last day, so I can speak freely. I've seen responses from the city, and I think that there's other board members that have sat here and can confirm that we've seen recommendations from the city as to whether they agree with the request or not agree with the request.
Again, sir, based on the rules that in discussion with Mr. Trask the last time, the city doesn't have a position because it is the board's decision to decide if that letter is substantial to reduce the fine.
All right, first I'd like to determine whether I'm imagining something or not, but I seem to recall several times seeing letters from the city in regards to requests that have been presented.
The city has, city staff has presented them in the past, but he's telling you today that he doesn't have a position. So he doesn't have to tell you whether you should grant it or deny it.
Okay, that's
Yeah,
fine. Well, then
so-
I'll entertain any motion.
I have another question. Do we know what the prosecution costs were?
This one, because it was done prior to 2017, that was our kind of our bright line where we started prosecution costs, so we didn't include prosecution costs in this case.
Okay.
Okay, well, then everybody's had an opportunity to see the letter from the gentleman from Peabody, Massachusetts, that's indicated what his situation is. So if,
I do still have a question.
okay, and who would you want to direct it to?
Officer Gasson.
Okay, go ahead.
I'd like to know the date that this case started.
August 1st, 2016.
So it took a year for them to come into
$25
compliance.
per day fine.
Okay, that's a good point.
And he doesn't live near here.
And he indicated in his letter that he would pay it.
And I don't see any hardship or proof of hardship.
Well, he's indicated he's got cancer. That could be a hardship. Pardon me?
Nothing. I just, all you have to do is put in an income tax return or something.
Okay, well, if no one has any further questions, I'll entertain a motion.
I'd like to make a motion.
Go ahead.
To deny the request for the fine
Okay,
reduction.
there's a motion to deny the request. Any second?
Second.
Okay. Any discussion? Can we get a roll call vote then?
Mr. Weeks?
Yes.
Ms. Wade?
Yes?
Ms. Dabbs?
No.
Mr. Bergerman?
Yes.
Ms. Vacacy?
Yes.
Mr. Demosis?
No.
Motion carries.
And the motion passes. Okay, that brings us to board and staff comments. Anybody on the board like to make a comment?
I would.
Well, if I recall, last time you said we were gonna have to
Yeah, we
address
have an addendum.
your replacement.
Can you not pass it out?
Well, I understand, I spoke with the
They have to get 'em.
city's, Mr. Trask, and he's indicated that should be the first order of business at our next meeting, where the vice chairman will ask for a vote. So that's gonna
That's fine.
that's gonna
We would-
take place
That was their- we'll take those
at your
too.
November meeting.
But they'll also have some-
Any other comments? You indicated you want to make a comment? Go ahead, sir.
Thank you for your service.
Well, thank you very much. And Mr. Trask?
Well, that's what I was gonna say. We appreciate the 4 years of service that you've provided this code enforcement board. The direction that you've given, I think, has been very, very helpful. Your life experience in handling different types of quasi-judicial matters like this in the past has been really, really helpful, and so I appreciate working side by side with you, and I wish the best of luck, and hopefully you will come back after a year out. You can do that.
Okay, well, that's something I'll certainly keep in mind.
And just for the information of the rest of the board, my term also ends November 1st.
So you're losing two of us.
He hardly got served because he was an alternate until 6 months ago. And
Yeah, and then I serve
out.
an unfulfilled term, and my term ends at the end of that term.
Well, before I close the meeting, I'd like to make a comment, and I'd like to thank everybody. Some of you have been on the board with me for a long time, and some of you I've only got a chance to meet. I certainly appreciate the help that everybody's given me. I certainly have appreciated Mr. Trask and his efforts to keep me in line. And Wanda, I certainly appreciate, as somebody that's been on the board a long time, there's been several times when you've had to get me back on the straight and narrow. The one thing I do want to point out is, and a suggestion I might make, is you may want to all consider changing the time that you meet, maybe starting earlier in the day, because I think that what I have found over the last few months is with the double vote that we now take on things that when we go to a penalty phase, it takes a lot longer. There's a lot more cases, and I just want to point out, I tried to work as fast as I could. I know there was some disappointment the last 2 or 3 months. People thought that I was taking much longer than possible. Somebody else could do, and next month you'll have somebody new, and hopefully they'll be able to get through the cases a lot faster than I have. But I would suggest that you might want to think about starting at 1 o'clock in the afternoon, so that you got a better chance of getting done and not going overtime. Last time I think people were concerned that they had other commitments, and all I can do is tell you that I appreciate everybody's effort. It was very enjoyable, mostly being here, and I wish you all the very best of luck. The next thing you'll have to do next month is pick a new chairman, and I know that you'll be able to find somebody good to do it, and the best of luck to everybody. This board does a lot of good, and I hope to see that it continues that way.
I would like to know.
Oh, we've got approval of minutes. I'm sorry. One last piece of business. We have approval of minutes for July 20th and August 10th. Any?
To accept the minutes
Okay.
for both.
Are we sure that's on the agenda? I didn't see the minutes.
Addendum to the agenda.
Was it addendum? It came out by email.
Okay.
Okay? Yep.
I move to accept the minutes for the September and August. all right,
July 20th.
July 20th, 2017, and the August 10th, 2017 meeting.
Second.
All right. Can we have a vote on that? Roll call vote. Accept the minutes.
Mr. Weeks,
Yes.
Mrs. Wade,
Yes.
Mrs. Dabbs,
Yes.
Mr. Bergman,
Yes.
Ms. Casey,
Yeah.
Mr. Demosas.
Yes. Okay, I guess we're done.
No, I have
No?
a question. Is this the whole board and we're losing two? Are there other members that just aren't coming anymore?
Well,
Or
Miss
what?
Becky's still in play.
All right,
She was
Becky.
not here today.
But Mr. His name sounds like a
He's just one,
water.
two, three, four, five.
Okay, he's gone.
Uh-huh.
Here's mine.
We had two, I know it's I was very confused, and I disrespected
Yeah.
the two alternates for about a month because I was counting, but I wasn't counting. But
Right.
anyway, yes, we lost people very quickly. I don't know if there's, if the Board of Commissioners have selected,
Okay.
you know, who'd come forward, who, I don't know, but I do know they meet again. So maybe at that point, when we meet here again, we'll
Might
have
have-
some members at that time.
Great, thank
But I
you.
will make sure Michelle passes on the word that it's very important that we fulfill our position so we can keep
Well,
going.
because right now with losing two, you may have a problem meeting a quorum if they don't name
Exactly.
other people soon.
That's true. That's very
Okay, thank you again, everyone.
Thank you.
And the meeting is closed.
Thank you. Oh,
That was too mean to include some of that. Some more of that guy's.
here we go.
Tom, it was really been a pleasure. That's really bad. Okay?
Look forward to seeing you again.
All right, and if I need a recommendation, if I apply to any other board, I'm gonna use your name, all right?
Yeah, okay.
Okay.
The library,
He just
where
wanted
it's nice and quiet.
not lose, that was his goal.
I hear you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you,
You've been
sir.
a big help. I wish you a lot of luck. You've made the same thing.
Next time.
He still won't speak to me.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Put on my sky.
Treat everybody so nice.
Thank you.
This is it, huh?
Yeah, I had the email discussion
See you
with
next month.
Michelle and Irene.
I said, see you next month.
You bet.
Okay.
I don't
Considering,
grasp the logic behind it, but I accept it now.
You're like me, I have to ask all the time. No, you don't, I mean, I've been doing this for a while, and I ask them where they're going, why are they going? I mean, they just got there, and then, you know, it makes sense, but
she was saying, I don't.
I guess
You
I
have
don't.
no legal obligation. The code doesn't
I
require
would
you
never,
to do it. The
I would
statute
get
doesn't
the back
require you
billing
to
or
do
what
it.
have you, because
But they want to hear from
You've got enough Robert's Rules of Order stuff in your head
I
to do
just
that
don't
well.
understand both terms
Okay
get
with
served.
that? Is that- You'd be good. I thought you would be.
Oh, I done
They
it.
don't have to agree with you.
But again, please,
I don't agree with you all the time, so.
And I'm not sure, this is gonna sound really sexist, but that it doesn't have to be.
oh,
Case number 10.
that's wonderful.
And it took them
They need, that's something that they